Hi, I'm Alan Katz, and I'm here with Dr. James Walton. We're here today to talk about premarital counseling. What premarital counseling is, who should get premarital counseling, and who should do your premarital counseling. These are three very important questions to consider when you're getting married and when you need to get counseling. So it's a pleasure.
Thank you very much for having me on the show.
My pleasure.
I really appreciate it.
So you are a licensed therapist. Tell me a little bit about your background.
Well, I'm a licensed family therapist. I have my doctorate in clinical psychology, and I had a radio show on KCSN for many years called Shrink Rap.
Okay.
So,
did you sing or did you just rap?
No, I actually interviewed people. I interviewed some of the great leaders in mental health. I gave Albert Ellis his last interview.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so it was an amazing experience. I loved every minute of it. So I've always liked being on the air and working with people and helping them, answer issues and work with their problems.
Well, premarital counseling is something that's very important when a couple is considering getting married. But it should be entered into with specific and desired results. So what are the main things that people come to a therapist for when they're talking about premarital counseling?
Well, before I address that, the first thing I'd like to say is I like to tell my couples that a wedding is for a day and a marriage is for a lifetime. And so what you want to do is you want to really invest in the marriage by improving your communication skills and your ability to have empathy for the other person.
Which is very important.
Those are very important skills to have in any relationship, and especially a marriage.
And not everybody has that before the ceremony takes place.
No.
It's something that you can learn, it's something you can be taught, and it's something you can enhance in yourself.
Yes, well, many times what happens is people that are getting married feel already that they have enough skills because they've made the decision to get married.
Right.
So they feel, okay, well, I've decided that this is the person I want to be with, so I must have enough skills to get through this. But what they don't realize is the moment you get married, all of your history, your parents, everybody comes to live with you in your head.
Right.
And before you're married, you're putting your best foot forward. After you're married, we don't put our best foot forward as often.
Right.
And so we start to slack off a little bit. And people become really surprised after the wedding who that other person is. Sometimes they feel like they don't even know them. Because what's happened is everybody, the moment they say I do, in her head she goes, now I own you.
Right.
And he goes, now I own you too. And with that ownership, they stop taking responsibility for what they have to do.
Right.
For keeping the marriage going and for growing it.
Because they don't have the right ownership manual, in this case.
That's right.
Now, there's different ways of getting premarital counseling. One way is to have the person who's marrying you do the premarital counseling, and I don't always recommend that unless they're a licensed therapist or have gone through personal training and professional training to do this. An officiant is not the appropriate person, in most cases, to give premarital counseling. Some people, again, who've had the training can do it, but I always say that if you want premarital counseling, go to a licensed therapist.
Go to a licensed mental health professional. It can be a family therapist, a licensed social worker, or a clinical psychologist. Marriage and family therapists, however, have been specially trained in being able to help couples with their communication issues and around premarital issues. So I would recommend those people.
And that's what I always tell couples. They're the ones who can help you the best. Here's my premarital counseling to couples who don't want to go through the same thing. Does he love you? Do you love him? Okay, you're counseled. That's my premarital counseling, but it goes a lot deeper than that.
There's a little more to it than that.
Yeah, so if couples feel that they need to get a little more, what are the steps, say if they decided to come to you and they wanted to get some premarital counseling, what are the steps that they take when they sit down in your office?
Well, what I do, the first thing is they make the phone call and we set up the appointment. And for Great Officiants, what I'm doing is I'm offering a free half-hour consultation for anybody that's coming through you to come in for 30 minutes of premarital counseling.
Okay.
So they call up and we set the appointment. They come into the office and we just do a little talk about, find out where they are, what their expectations of their relationship are, what their expectations of employment are for each other. Do they want children? Which is a big issue. And
absolutely.
Where do they spend the holidays? You don't think
His
about
place,
those
her
things.
place.
Well, yeah, his parents, her parents, Uncle Joe, Aunt Sally, and a lot of times what happens is we have these things in our mind, and we don't talk about them because we either think, oh, it's obvious,
or we don't want to have to hassle it.
Or we don't hassle it.
Exactly.
And then comes the moment of truth. So what we do in the premarital counseling is we've already established that you want to get married, so this isn't about doing anything to tinker with that. What it's about is getting people to communicate more about what their expectations are, what they want out of the marriage, and how to settle arguments. Because a lot of times around a wedding, there is a lot of stress. And when people are overwhelmed with stress, they are not always on their best behavior.
Right.
And so this can actually help them learn how to let go of that anxiety, let go of the frustration or the stress. Something else that really is helpful for women with premarital counseling, something I like to do, is to help them walk down the aisle with a sense of confidence. Because a lot of women have some anxiety about standing up in front of people and walking down the aisle. I mean, it's actually it's pretty common. They're afraid they're going to trip.
Right.
Or something's going to happen. And I like to work with them on this to help them feel a sense of relaxation and peace and comfort as they're walking down the aisle. So all they have to do is focus on the one that they love.
And I know that on the CD that you have ways of doing this. You have a...
Yes. I do a guided meditation.
Exactly.
And I also do a hypnosis for women so that they're able to walk down the aisle in a sense of calm and relaxation. It's very helpful.
Now for guys, showing up at the wedding is basically their only chore. Making sure they show up, they show up straight, not drunk,
right,
and they make it down the aisle with their groomsmen.
Yes. Oh, can I bring up the bachelor party?
Yes.
You just mentioned that thing about being sober, and a lot of women feel a sense of disappointment in their fiancés wanting to do a bachelor party, and they don't always understand what that's about. The bachelor party actually is more frequently for the male friends of the groom. And
I know, I've thrown a lot of bachelor parties in my time.
Yeah, and it's their way of having a little ceremony of their own with their friend and a reestablishing of what the new boundaries are. Because there's another person, the new wife is moving in.
Right.
And she's going to take precedence over the friends. And the friends are used to calling up and saying, hey, let's go out for a beer. Okay, I'll throw my cap on. That's not going to happen, or at least as frequently.
Right.
And it shouldn't happen as frequently either. So it's their night of being able to come to tease him,
Right, it's never going to happen again, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
You're lost everything.
Yeah.
And it's everybody's way of having fun with them.
Right, and then they like to put them in situations that make them uncomfortable because men do something called jousting with each other that women don't do. So it's hard for a woman to understand how two men could like attorneys, let's say, they argue over something, about fight in court, and then they go, hey, it's 5 o'clock, let's go out for a beer. Well, two women would never want to do that. They'd still be angry with each other.
Right.
The guys actually aren't angry with each other, they're jousting. And when guys do a bachelor party, they're jousting.
Right.
And so they're having fun. So it's for the women to just understand that these are guys jousting with each other. They're putting their friend in situations. They're getting him to be embarrassed. And in reality, most men are really not comfortable doing the bachelor party.
Right. They're not there for the strippers.
No,
they just want to hang out with their friends. Their last big hurrah.
That's right.
Right.
They want to be with their friends, and they don't really care about this. They're into their wife, or their fiance. That's who.
That's why they're getting married.
That's why they're getting married. So they go along with it. It's good-natured, and friends will push people to the edge, and it's just that jousting thing. Now, what the groom can do is he can limit the amount of drinking he does that night.
Right.
So if he can just limit what he drinks, it's going to make things work a lot better. And he has that control. But he doesn't have control of the bachelor party because you never know what they're going to come out with.
Right.
And that's part of it.
But these days, there's lots of other things you can do at bachelor parties. I've seen artistic stuff that you can do, cigar rolling, things like that, where you can do stuff creative and not just get the whole stripper thing. So
that's true.
But this is a whole nother conversation for a whole nother time.
But the jousting is important.
Right.
So.
Well, one thing that we talked about earlier was about the man's role as far as letting the woman have her dream day. For part 2 of this great interview on marriage counseling, look for it on YouTube or on our Great Officiants website.